Hello humans, it's just Martine, and today we're doing the currently reading book tag. Last week, I challenged myself to read a single book at a time, but as you may know about me, that is not the normal state of affairs around here. And while I referenced that that was not normal for me in that video where I read one book at a time, I did not tell you exactly how many books I am usually reading at once. So I found the currently reading book tag, and I thought this would be the perfect time to have a discussion about how many books I read at once and how I do that. Let's jump straight into it. I will leave the information from the original tag linked down below. Question 1. How many books do you usually read at once? When I'm living my normal life and reading ebooks, audiobooks, physical books, whichever books I want, I'm usually reading 6, 7, or 8 books at the same time. So I guess the answer to this is like probably an average of 7. A lot of people wonder how I don't get confused with how many books I read at once, but I tend to follow a basic rule, which is that I don't read something that is the same genre as another current read if it's also in the same format. So I'm not going to be reading 2 romance books that are both ebooks at the same time, but I will read 2 romance books at the same time if one is, say, an audiobook and one's a physical book. Because the experiences of reading digitally, listening to books, or reading them as a physical book feels so different to me, this really helps me keep similar genres separated in my brain when I'm reading them at the same time. Question 2. If you're reading more than one book at a time, how do you decide when to switch which book you're reading? Okay, it kind of depends, because in general, I just kind of switch between books whenever I feel like it. Like if I'm reading a book and I'm like, I don't really feel like reading this book right now, I'll switch to another book that I feel more like reading in that moment. But then sometimes I decide to switch based on necessity. So like say I'm reading a book and I'm really enjoying it and I'm like, but there's this other book I have to finish for a video project today, so I'm gonna switch to that book. And then once I've read a certain amount in that book, I'll switch back. In an ideal world, I read at least 30 minutes of a book before I switch to a different book, but some days we are not living in an ideal world. So just whenever I feel like I need to. Question 3. Do you ever switch bookmarks when you're partway through a book? No, I keep my bookmark in my book. So when I'm reading my book, I then put the bookmark right there so that when I'm finished reading that book for that time, I pick up the bookmark that's still right there, I put it in the book, I close the book. Do other people not do that? Question 4. Where do you keep the book that you're currently reading? Generally, the book that I'm currently reading, or all the books I'm currently reading, live on my, it's not really a nightstand, but I consider it my nightstand. It's just a thing of drawers that lives next to my bed, which is ironic because as I'm telling you that right now, there is not a single book on that surface because I'm traveling later today, so they're all in my bag. So that's where the physical books I'm currently reading live. The digital books and the audiobooks that I'm currently reading live usually on my phone, sometimes on my iPad, but usually on my phone. Question 5. What time of day do you spend the most time reading? As much as I'm not a night person, I do get most of my reading done at night because that's when I have free time. In the morning, I'm really productive, so sometimes I get some reading done then, but oftentimes I just want to jump into my work so I can get it done as fast as possible in the day. And then afternoon, I'm usually working, and if I'm not working, then I need a break so substantial that it requires very few of my brain cells, so I'll watch, say, YouTube or something instead of reading on a break, because usually I'm taking a break from school reading, so I'm not gonna read. So nighttime is when I get most of my reading done. Specifically, consistently, even if I haven't read a single other page that day, usually I get reading done right before I fall asleep because I'll sit in my bed in the dark and read a book on my phone. Or a couple books, I'll flip between them, whatever I feel like doing. Question 6, how long do you typically read for in one go? As I mentioned, in an ideal world, I'll read for like 20 to 30 minutes before I stop reading, but sometimes I read for 5 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm done now. And sometimes I read for 50 minutes and then I'm like, I'm done now. But I would say more often than not, it's somewhere around 20 to 30 minutes before I decide to put the book down for a few. I will read for like huge stretches of time, but with frequent breaks. So I'll read like 20 or 30 minutes, take 5, 10 minutes to do something else, switch back, do that over and over and over again. So it's not like I read for 20 minutes and then walk away for the rest of the day. Question 7. Do you read hardcovers with the dust jacket on or off? I read them with the dust jacket on. I don't really like the feel of a hardcover book without the dust jacket. I don't know what to tell you. I generally don't like the feel of a hardcover book at all, but the dust jacket usually helps. Question 8. What position do you mainly use to read? There are 3 main positions that I use from reading. I'll sit in this chair that I'm sitting in right now. I'll sit on my bed because I have this helpful sitting cushion, or I'll pace. I like to move around when I read so that I don't fall asleep. It is nice to be cozy while you read, but can't be getting too cozy. I'll just fall asleep. So moving around is my general go-to hack for that. Question 9. Do you take the book you're currently reading with you everywhere you go? Usually I don't take a physical book with me everywhere I go. If I'm going somewhere, I generally rely on the fact that my phone has a ton of books on it, whether it's through Libby or my Kindle library. There are so many books available to me through my phone that it is pointless usually to bring a physical book with me. There are exceptions. For instance, while I was doing Chaostober and I could only read Dollar Tree books, I had to bring a physical book with me if I was going to read anything. Question 10. How often do you update your progress in the books you're currently reading on Goodreads? I don't. I basically only tell Goodreads that I'm reading a book after I've finished the book. So I mark it as currently reading, and then I go to the homepage and I say, I'm finished, and I read it, and I submit it. So it's a surprise to Goodreads when I've read something. It's like, oh, Martine just started this book. Martine's done with this book. I keep track of it in Bookly because that tracks all of my reading. Like I click start on Bookly when I start a reading session. I click stop when I'm done the reading session. So Bookly always knows what I'm reading. Not always. Usually Bookly knows what I'm reading, but Goodreads is like the friend you tell last. And finally, it tells me to tag people, but I don't know who has or has not done this or wants to do it. So if you want to be tagged, consider yourself tagged. So that's the currently reading book tag. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below. How many books do you usually read at once? Are you more like me in that way? Are you baffled by how much I read all at the same time? I'd love to know. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!